Hi everyone, my name is Vasiliki Gkofa and welcome back to another video on our channel. So today I'm going to discuss about the topic of making choices. Hi everyone, my name is Vasiliki Gkofa and welcome back to another video on our channel. So today I'm going to discuss about the topic of making choices. So in this short clip, I'm going to discuss very briefly the 2 steps of making a choice. Then we're going to move on to some influences on making choices, why people don't choose, choosing and changing, and to finish off, as always, I'm going to touch upon treatment. So let's start. Well, everything we do in our daily lives is about making a choice. If we actually think about it and take a step back, well, if I decide now that I need to go to the supermarket, I still need to make a choice if there are 2 exits to go to the supermarket of maybe turning right or turning left. So I do think that if not everything, quite a few things would be about making choices. So this is why I think it's a very important topic to discuss. Now, what are the 2 steps of making a choice? Well, the first one is to actually narrow down the options that you have. Let's say that you have 10 different options and you are not sure what to choose. What might be even easier, even more beneficial for you, is to narrow down those 10 choices, 10 options into 5. And after you do that, the second step comes in, which is to try to actually look into those 5 options more in depth in order to realize, well, what is good, what is bad. This is more of a mental risk-benefit analysis. So you look into each option and you say, those are the good things, those are the bad things, the negative, positive things, and that's how you decide on making a choice. Now, I would say, challenging part when you actually narrow down your choices is the fact that one good choice might be missed. You might decide to disregard one choice which might have ended up to be a very good option. Well, although that might be a risk, unfortunately, in order to end up with one choice or 2 choices at one point, you need to take that risk. So this brings me on to the next point, which is more around the influences on making choices. So I'm going to discuss 4 today. The first one is risk aversion. So what I mean by that is that an individual is more likely to not make a choice if there is that possibility of actually losing something. So let's think of an example here. If you're going to place a bet and you know that you might win £50, but you might also lose £50, what evidence has shown is that individuals are more likely not to place that bet because there is that possibility of losing £50, which actually does not make so much sense, because if we think of this rationally, the odds of winning and losing are the same, right? But because you know that there is that possibility of losing, you are not likely to take that option. The second one is temporal discounting. So for this one, it's more about the fact that an individual will choose something that is more immediate. So if you have, let's say, and let's take another example here. If I come and I tell you, well, I will give you £50 today, they're yours, you can have them, or you can wait and I'll give you £100 in 2 weeks. What has been shown is that the individual is more likely to choose that immediate option rather than waiting. And there is also another famous experiment, I would say. You can check YouTube if you don't know which one that is. This is the marshmallow effect. So this is quite funny, I would say. And if you watch the YouTube video, you will understand why I'm saying that. So they would place kids into different rooms and they would have marshmallows, candy in front of them. And they would tell them, well, you can have this marshmallow now, it's right here, or if you wait until I come back, then I'll give you more candy. And the funny thing is that there is this hidden camera, and we can see some children just taking that marshmallow and not caring so much, but others do try not to look at the marshmallow and really try to not eat that in order to get more candy after. So of course there are exceptions. Some people might decide to wait, but overall, what evidence has shown is that we're more likely to just take that option that we have now, because the future is quite uncontrollable, I would say. We don't know what the future holds, and therefore we want that 50 pounds. We would want that marshmallow now. So this is the temporal discounting. Now let's move on to another one, which is the certainty effect. So what I mean by that is that there's some options that they're more with the odds, like we said with placing a bet. You have that option of actually winning, gaining something, or you might lose. But there are some things that are certain. Let's say that you want to buy a car and you go to the car shop, and the individual is informing you that there are different models and that different models have different features. So we've upgraded a feature, and that now this would ensure that you are more safe if something happens, if there is a car crash, for instance. But that is definitely really important. However, you might be in a car crash, but you might also not be in a car crash. So it's not a certainty. And therefore, what you might end up doing is actually choosing based on something else. So the color of the car is always going to be red, for instance, and therefore you're more likely to end up choosing a car depending on its color, or at least it has a really big influence on you, because that color will always stay the same. You might have that car for many years, for all your life, or for a handful of years, rather than choosing based on something else, which again does not make so much sense, because of course your security is more important than the color of the car. But because one is certain and one isn't, you feel more comfortable taking that road, let's say. And the last one, the fourth point that I wanted to make, is to keep our options open. So what I mean by that is that individuals feel more comfortable knowing that they have many different options on the table. So let's say that you are studying in the United States. And I'm bringing this example because I know that in the United States, you have the opportunity of not choosing a major or double majoring. And therefore, what that gives you is that you have different options open. However, if you think about it, because you have two majors, you don't have so much time to actually study and devote your time on one specific course, because now you have two majors. And compared to someone that has one major, you are at a disadvantage here when it comes to time. Of course, individual differences do apply again here, and of course you might be a really hard worker and you might end up being even better than someone that has one major, but you understand what I mean here. But what that will give you, what you will gain, is that when you finish, you know that, well, now I have two options. I have majored in psychology, but I've also majored, I don't know, in geography. So this is another reason why you might not make a choice. So let's move on now to why people won't choose. Well, what I do want to mention here is that always postponing making a decision could be linked to a pattern called decision avoidance. And in 2003, Anderson did discuss different forms that this pattern could take. So one of them is the status quo bias. This is when you are not doing anything because you prefer things as they are. So for instance, that other option is quite unfamiliar, the future of that option is unknown, and therefore it could bring problems that you did not see coming. So you prefer not to take that option because you just want things as they are. You are comfortable with your familiarity. But the risk here is that that other option, the unknown, could have ended up giving you even more things that you could have seen coming. Another pattern that does lead to doing nothing is omission bias. This is when you take that course of action that requires you to do nothing. And let's take an example so that you can understand this a bit better. Let's say that you are browsing a website and they tell you that in order to use this website, you just need to fill out a very brief, very simple free registration. So it might just be writing down your name. So you basically do nothing because you just need to write down your name and you can access the website. Or another one could be that there's also that option and there are different things stated, and you see that there are some options already being ticked. And what that option says is that if you don't want to be added on our mailing list, please untick this box. So what happens is that you are more likely to not do anything, and therefore you won't untick this box rather than going ahead and unticking it. Other websites might actually leave that blank and they will tell you, if you want to be added on our mailing list, please tick this box. However, as I said, you are less likely to go there and tick it when it's unticked rather than what we mentioned before. And some people know this, and this is why they prefer doing that. Because at the end of the day, you're going to be added on their mailing list, and this is what they wanted from the first place. Another theme that Anderson discussed was that anticipated regret. So people might end up not choosing because they have this thought that they will regret this decision later, and therefore they don't want to be faced with that regret, and this is why they might say, I won't make that choice today or ever. Another one could be linked to the fact that there are many options, and therefore you are more likely to end up not choosing. Let's say that you go to a shop and there are 5 different dresses that you really like, and they're also the same price. You're more likely to be faced with that uncomfortable feeling and therefore decide to leave rather than making a choice. But it also applies to not having many choices. So when you're just faced with few options, you're also less likely to make a choice. Let's say that you go to a restaurant and that restaurant only gives you 1 or 2 choices of a dish. You're more likely to say, well, I don't like anything, let's go somewhere else, rather than sitting and saying, I'll choose one of those 2 options. And also wanting to preserve your options could be linked to a theory that is known as reactance theory. So this is when you would like to have that freedom of choosing, to have a freedom of choosing whatever you'd like. And therefore, if someone comes and tells you, well, you can choose anything you'd like, but this, you're more likely to have that negative feeling, that reactance to what they are telling you, because now one of those options has been taken away from you. Let's say that, again, you are eating at a restaurant and you want to have one dessert. And the waiter tells you, well, you can have all the other desserts but this because we've sold out or the chef is not making it. You're more likely to have this negative feeling that, well, I just wanted that dessert, so I'm not gonna have anything now. Or because now they've taken away that option, it is becoming more appealing to you. Even though you might have never chosen that, now that it's being taken away, you want it even more. So those are some of the things that we tend to see and why they might lead someone to not making a choice. So now let's talk about choosing and changing. As I said, making a choice could be present in our daily lives, and therefore one could say that it's also an essential part of life. Now, there are some people that do believe that traits are fixed, and therefore we cannot change who we are always going to be the same. Whereas there are other individuals that do hold the belief that traits are not fixed and we can change aspects of ourselves. In 1996, a researcher known as Carl Dweck did describe the individuals that do believe that traits are fixed as entity theorists, compared to incremental theorists who are individuals that do believe that traits are not fixed and we can change aspects of ourselves. As you're probably imagining, the individuals, the entity theorists, are more likely to choose something that will lead to success and therefore to admiration in order to avoid criticism. Whereas the incremental theorists are more likely to not be affected by even failure. They will view this as motivation, as a way to improve, and they don't mind taking that option. So we can see here that for the individuals, the entity theorists, they are more likely to think that failure is this way of showing me that actually I am not able to succeed in that dimension, and therefore it could be linked to learned helplessness. Whereas for incremental theorists, sometimes it's what they need to keep on going, to keep on pushing themselves. Now, to finish off, I would like us to touch upon treatment. So not many things to say here, but I do want to say that there are some interventions that could be quite beneficial. As you're probably imagining, this is cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. This is because most of the things that we have discussed, if you take a step back and think about those, they're more linked to how you think, how you view life, and therefore the beliefs that you're going to hold. If, for instance, you are a person that thinks that things will never change, they will always be like this, then at some point you might think that, well, I'm just stuck in life, which will increase your anxiety, of course, and at some points it will also cause some depressive symptoms. So I do want to stress here that actually what we have discussed today is not a disorder, definitely not a disorder. However, it is an outlook on life. And if you do feel stuck, then maybe changing those maladaptive thoughts that are linked to your emotions, to how you behave, and the physiological arousal that you have could be very beneficial for you. Another therapeutic intervention is acceptance and commitment therapy, what we call ACT. So again, you are going to go through your thinking pattern, but there's also that mindfulness aspect, that acceptance that sometimes maybe really we cannot change something. We cannot choose to change that. And it could be very beneficial for you to accept that things are like that. So I would recommend that if you are interested in that, if you do think that, well, I could be benefited from looking into this a bit further, exploring this a bit further, you can give us a ring and we can discuss this together. Or if you do want to just book an appointment, again, you can visit our website, and I'm sure one of the practitioners would be happy to respond to any questions that you might have. That's it, guys. Thank you very much for watching this clip today, and stay tuned for some more videos. Thank you. Bye.